All of us dream at some point during our sleep. Most of those dreams we don't remember. Many dreams we don't want to remember. The topic that I'm going to discuss here is, what is it about dreams that we can learn from? It's definitely clearly part of our lives, but it's in a mysterious domain that goes into the category of sleep in general and what happened during those hours and when we dream. Very often dreams are just flights of fancy, crazy stuff, gibberish. But is there anything in our dreams that we can learn from? Is it a glimpse into another reality? One of the most famous dreams, where Jacob leaves Be'er Sheva, where he lived, and goes Vayelech Harana. He goes to Haran. He's escaping Esav and is going to build a family. And on his way, it says, Vayivka b'makim, he comes to a place, he rests there as the sun set. He placed stones around his head, and he fell asleep. Vayachlim. And he dreamt. V'hinei. And behold, Sulam Mutzavartzav, there's a ladder that's standing on the ground. V'reishem Agei Shamayim, and the top of the ladder reaches up into the heaven. And the continuing story of the angels, and then he feels God is present there, and God blesses him with the great blessing, V'ahir Zaracha, that your children will be spread all over like the earth, like the sand across the earth. Faratz to Yamav Akema, and spread to the east, to the west, to the north, and to the south. And all the nations of the world will be blessed through you and through your children. And then he continues how God will blesses him, that he'll protect him, and so on. But Vayachlim is the word that we're going to be discussing. Many other classes have addressed different components, different elements of this journey, which is a fundamental journey in all our lives, as we shall discuss. But the detail I will focus on is that Vayachlim, the dream. It was specifically a dream where all this takes place. And we'll see that this dream can teach us about our own dreams. So let's go back to what dreams are about. I also will talk about dreams that we have when we're awake. Dreams, aspirations, hopes that we have even when we're in a conscious state, not just when we're asleep. But let's start with a conventional dream. In Hebrew, the word dream, Vayachlim. Vayachlim is an interesting word. It means dream, but it also means to strengthen. Because there's an expression, there's a book in the book of Isaiah, it says, V'yachlimenu v'yachyeni, which means that I strengthened and gave life. You strengthened me, you gave me life. So cholam also means to strengthen. Now we know sleep in general is a regeneration of our cells, of our bodies, and we feel refreshed after sleep. You cannot go too long without sleep. Your machine, your body, your being, your life needs that type of refreshment. What sleep is exactly is another discussion, but one of the components is dreaming. Sleep does strengthen us, it refreshes us. And we see when we wake up in the morning, our minds are fresher, and we begin a new day. So what exactly is this thing called a dream? On one hand, you find in the Bible later, especially Joseph interprets dreams. Are we meant to interpret dreams? Are dreams a type of prophecy that is meant to teach us something? Very many people get consumed with their dreams. On the other hand, you find the line that one of the Rebbes told somebody who came for an interpretation of dream, he said, let's first figure out what to do when we're awake, and then we'll figure out what to do when we dream. That's not in any way negating dream interpretation. It's focusing on a very important component that Judaism avoids and actually loathes any form of sensationalism. The idea of crystal balls or a dream being controlling our destiny. It's part of our lives. So indeed the Talmud tells us that firstly a person doesn't dream at night about something they don't think about by day. We also have that there's no dream without Dvarim B'Teilim, without nonsense. And on the other hand, a dream can be a glimpse, and often is stated as a glimpse into something bigger, some type of mini prophecy. The problem is it's all jumbled into one big snowball, and we can't figure out what's significant, what's not significant. You'll often find characters in a dream where you bring together different things you thought about, and they have no connection, but they all come together. And often dreams actually, we resolve questions there. People go to sleep with a very focused question, and they can find an answer in their dreams. So let's stop on this line that a person at night dreams about what they think about by day, which of course means that it's an extension of our conscious beings. That's a very powerful statement. When Jacob was traveling here, even though he wakes up and realizes that he went to sleep on the Temple Mount, but still his dream is far from some type of nonsense. His dream is he dreams about exactly what his life was about, where he's going, the protection he needs, the blessings that God encourages him, and so on. So his dream is a very focused one. But that's obviously because Jacob, that's what he was thinking about before he went to sleep. No question, as he was traveling from his home, his comfort of his home, going into unknown world, charana, which also means the wrath of God, charin, anger, wrath, a dark place, a hostile place, which would turn out to be Laban, his uncle, was far from a simple character, a charlatan, a shrewd, fooled him, and so on. So you can imagine what was on Jacob's mind when he was awake. What's happening? What's going to be coming? So therefore the dream follows his thoughts, which is lesson number 1. You can control not necessarily the exact dream, but how you go to sleep and what you think about before actually can affect how your sleep will be and what you dream about. If it's about things that are frightening or other negative stuff, you can imagine the dream is not going to be necessarily a positive one. If, however, you go to sleep and you go with mindset consciously that you want an answer to something, or you're dealing with something that is a positive, or you fall asleep, as we'll soon discuss at the end, some suggestions with something soothing, something calming, it's more likely that your dream will also be a calming one. So that's lesson number 1. But it goes far deeper than that. What do we dream about? You'll often find most of our dreams don't have any real significance. They're usually about exactly that, the nonsense, as the Talmud says. There may be sometimes a message here and there, especially a dream that repeats itself, but in general, that's what it is, it's nonsense. However, the fact of the matter is that a dream, it by definition means it's something beyond our regular thinking. You know, when someone says, I'm dreaming about something. So is there anything realistic? Or is it, as I mentioned, a flight of fancy, or escapism, or some other form of denial of the reality? You know, let's pose that same question in the conscious sense. When a person's awake and they dream of something they want and aspire to in their lives. Is that just wishful thinking? Many of us dream of world peace, of harmony, and then you look around what's happening in the world today. Paris burning, other attacks in Jerusalem, in Europe, and so on. Is it realistic? And many people will throw a pail of cold water on us and say, wake up, stop dreaming, stop being a fantasy. Children like to imagine and to dream. But as we shall see, that's not correct. Because dreaming is a indication, as well as the ability for us to dream and to aspire is an indication that there is more to reality than what we see. And indeed, sleep itself tells us that. What exactly happens? That refreshes us. That at a certain point, people just lie down. 7 billion people on this planet will lie down at some point, go to sleep, and something happens during that period. So the first thing is that we recognize there's a world that's beyond what we see. A dream is a glimpse into that type of reality that is beyond the conscious one. Because we enter there, and we don't have the tools necessarily, and it is beyond the conscious, there's many things there that are not necessarily going to make sense. There will be confusion, there'll be gibberish, there'll be contradictions, and so on. But it is an entry into another reality. Now, we can't live in the world of dreams. We have to live on earth, and we have to live in the conscious. But the dreams can inform us, which explains why did it have to be through a dream? God could have came to him like he came to Abraham and Isaac and made his promises. Because a dream opens up a door to what we'll call supraconscious reality. Whereas we have the conscious experience that we have, there's the supraconscious. And there are times when you want to have something coming into your life from a deeper place, the dream is the channel. Now, this doesn't mean we have to always understand our dreams, and it doesn't always mean that we have to interpret our dreams. It just means that mere fact that your mind is able to go to another place is an ability to come back and strengthen and give you empower and rejuvenate and regenerate who we are. So when we have the ability to dream, even though our so-called realist will say, what are you talking about? Right now, the situation is not like that. That's exactly what the power of a dream is, that our minds can imagine something more than we right now are experiencing. And that opens up the possibility to achieve it. People call it the law of attraction. which really originates from an expression from the Tzemach Tzedek, Tach gut v'zayin gut. When you think good, it will be good. What does that mean? Right now, it doesn't appear good. It doesn't appear promising. And yet, there's something about our minds, our mindsets, our attitudes. The way the neurons are fired, that's how they get wired. Now, this isn't always it happens immediately and in a linear way, but overall, it means that there's more to life than we expect, than we assume. You see people when their adrenaline is flowing, when there's, God forbid, danger, when there's situations with their really urgency, suddenly we come up with ideas that we wouldn't have come up otherwise. Because there's the conscious, regular flow, let's call it, of consciousness from the mind, and then there's a flow that comes from a deeper place in the back, we'll say from the substrata, and under the belly of the surface of our conscious minds. And dreams come from that place. When Jacob here was going to build the Jewish nation, he needed and wanted a blessing that would come more than just from a conscious divine place, but from a superconscious. And hence it was all in the dream form, Vayachlin, the great blessing of Ufaratzta, which meant that even though you're going to this dark place, a hostile place, know that there's a higher dimension and you can access that, and that will allow you to be blessed with your children to spread all over the world. And we see the blessing was fulfilled. We learn from that we too have the same idea. We have to have mindsets that are very positive. If we succumb to so-called the realism of our conscious experiences, that itself is our downfall. When you see, for instance, events happening now in the world, it's very frightening. You could retreat and say, you know something, it's all out of control. Let me run. However, even though it is frightening in some ways, but we do not need to be frightened because we have resources far more than we can ever imagine. So the dream, number one, tells you there's a reality beyond yours. All day you're thinking about all kinds of things and conspiring and plotting and writing scripts and planning and strategizing. Comes at night, suddenly another dimension of the mind opens up, which is completely confusing. It's stuff that most of us can't make any sense of. But it tells you there's more to you than you may think. That alone is a lesson. Forget about what the dream is telling you. That alone is a lesson. There's more to you than you may think. It's a direct message that there's a superconscious. And you have ability to access it by living a conscious life with the humility and awareness that you can enter that place. So that's lesson number one in the concept of a dream. And then the concept of strengthening us, the strengthening that it does. So in a very basic level, as I said, what does sleep do? In some way it rejuvenates, it regenerates the cells. But same thing with the mind. The mind is busy with all kinds of machinations. Let's even say they're positive stuff. But it's still constantly based on your plans and your thoughts and your ideas and your strategies, which often, like all of us, we make our mistakes. Then, of course, there's so many of our thoughts that are negative thoughts. So how do you, and negative thoughts about our own lack of inadequacies, about our vulnerabilities, about our fears, our insecurities. Come sleep and almost like a washing machine, a type of washes your whole system out. And your mind goes into this type of comatose state, sleep comatose state, and is able to travel to another place. As the Medrash says, it goes to a fountain to get rejuvenated. And in a way, it's like cleaning out the hard drive of your mind in order that you can wake up with a fresh way of looking at something. Obviously, it doesn't erase everything from the past, we remember, but you may have a new day, a new way of looking at it. Very often, you go to sleep with a question, and you may not have the exact answer, sometimes you will, but at least you say, new day, let me look at it with a fresh set of eyes. And that is also what a dream has the power to do, a type of reorienting of the paradigm that you're presently in. And precisely for that reason, that's why a dream is not just an extension of conscious thought, because then it's not doing any type of shifting. If you want to shift, it has to somewhat you can say play around with, or you can say rewire that which is in our conscious presence. So that's the second thing with a dream, that in addition to the first one, the idea that there's a deeper reality, that there needs to be some type of shift, like it says in the Kabbalists say that between every between every yesh and yesh, you need an ayin be'emtza. You need a certain type of vacuum, a void. You need to shed one layer to assume a new one. You need to go through a type of shift, and that shift is the shift of sleep, and particularly the dream, which goes into another place of the mind that reorients, reshuffles things. And again, this has nothing to do with the actual dream. We'll get to that soon. It's to do with just with that state of being. So go back to the question, what do you dream about? What do you dream about? You dream about the things that you usually think about. The real goal is that if you can imagine during the day, studying something, or before you go to sleep, that literally takes you consciously to a place that's beyond a dream-like place. Think, yes, of world peace, harmony, of a deeper type of reality, a messianic reality, a reality where the world will be far better than it is right now. Then when your dream comes into play, your dream will know how to take that and so-called crossbreed it with a superconscious state and give you back a new way of looking at things. So there's just that fact alone that we can look at things with fresh set of eyes that goes beyond the prejudices and biases, our prior prejudices and biases and preconceived notions, is a tremendous gift in life. And yet another lesson from the Vayachlem, the dream of Jacob. So I know I'm speaking both about dreams that sleep and dreams that were awake, but they are somewhat connected. But let's go back to the sleep dreams. In general, we don't pursue dream interpretation, even though it may be true, because, as I said earlier, you have to get control of your life when you're consciously awake. And that's the best way to deal with your dreams as well. But there are times, as we see in the story of Joseph and Pharaoh, Joseph and his brothers, that a dream, either because it repeats itself, or because someone who understands knows that there's something to be read in those dreams. Remember, the dreams actually interpretations begin even earlier. Well, it begins with his brothers, but there's also with the Sar HaMashkim, the toastmaster, of the king, and the Sar Ephim, etc., the baker, when he dreams their dreams and Joseph interprets them. And then, of course, there's the Pharaoh's dream that Joseph interprets, when ultimately turns him into a viceroy. Interesting. There you go. There Joseph is in prison, full of despair. He has no idea how he's going to get out. Suddenly the people sitting near him tell him about their dreams. He interprets that the baker will not live, and the Sar HaMashkim, the one who's the bartender, or the one who the minister of drinks, if you wish, will survive. They actually leave prison, and he says, ask them to remember not to forget me. First they forget him, but then when Pharaoh has those dreams of the 7 cows, the thin cows, the thick cows, the 7 stalks of grain, again the thin and thick, they finally remember, and Joseph is brought, and he interprets the dreams, and what happens? From an Eved Nasa Melech, from a lowly prisoner, he suddenly becomes a Melech. He becomes the Mishnah Melech, he becomes the viceroy, the second in command. All through a dream. So again, you see how a dream creates a shift. Now it's not Joseph's dream, but the dream which caused Pharaoh to be so concerned because of the weirdness of his dream. Here comes a man who's able to enter into that superconscious state and tell him what the dream is foretelling. The 7 years of plenty that will then be followed by 7 years of famine. And that in turn turns Egypt into a superpower. All due to a dream. Showing us again how a dream has that power to create shifts in our lives and has the ability to be able to open up new doors even when we may think some things are not exactly hopeful. So to say, be realistic and let's not dream, is defeating the whole purpose of the dream. The exact opposite is true. To escape reality and not to deal with situations on the ground, that's not what we're talking about. Obviously deal with the situation, but never lose sight of your highest aspirations. This has actually been the secret of the Jewish people's survival, that even though we've seen the abyss many times, we never lost sight of our dream. The dream that we will reach a point where the world will experience the Messianic age of freedom, of harmony, of world peace. No more war, no more famine, no more envy, no more destruction. That's what we hold on to. So for someone to say, look how bad things are, that's precisely why you need to have something greater to hold on. Viktor Frankl founded a whole school of psychology called logotherapy, man in search of meaning, because he saw the people in the concentration camps who had meaning in their lives. So even though they didn't suffer less than everyone else, but they had something to hold on to. It's like holding on to a life raft when the storms are too powerful and overwhelming. When you're tied above, you don't fall below. And I see all this is not even the particular dream, but the idea to be able to dream is a gift given to us. that we have the ability to access something that is beyond the immediate reality. And we hope for it, we wait for it, we pine for it, we dream about it. And that, then it does become indeed a reality. The word cholam also can also be, the letters chos lamed mem also mean lechem. Lechem means bread. Lechem also means war, locham, to war. So you have the options when you're doing all these activities, which is simple bread. Are you going to eat just for survival? Just for the battle of life? Or are you going to eat, and as we say in the benching, we don't just talk about thank you, God. In the beginning we say, we've been fed, we've been sated, thank you. But then we say, V'nei Yerushalayim Ira Kodesh. Jerusalem should be rebuilt. What does Jerusalem have to do with eating a plain meal? Because we are not just we're not just people of needs in this material world. We are dreamers. We dream, cholam, even when we eat lechem. Even when a person is eating food and dealing with mundane matters, our eyes are always set to higher sights. Our sights are set to higher and greater horizons, that we should be able to always aspire. So we're not just succumbing to living and surviving in a material world. Our eyes are always looking to heaven. Sumarim enechem, we raise our eyes to heaven to see what else is there. The bigger picture, which of course is critical to keep a person afloat and to constantly grow. That's how we look at things. We dream. And then come the dreams at night. The dreams at night we have less control over. But when we think this way, then that experience also turns into a dream-like one, which is opening up new doors. Now, as I said before, there's no guarantees, but the more you prepare yourself to go to sleep in the proper way, the more effective the sleep and the dream will be like. Which is the practical suggestion, as I've made a number of times. Just like in the morning when we start the day, start with Moda Ani. Thank you for returning my soul to me. Before we go to sleep, say, B'yotcha afkid ruchi, padisi esi kelemes. In your hands, God, afkid ruchi, I trust my spirit. Padisi esi kelemes. Redeem me, the God of truth. Free me, redeem me. So in a sense, it's like saying right before you go to sleep, in the Shema and the final statement, this is the verse I just said, that I give you and trust you with my soul. Take it to a good place. Take it to a place that's beyond my survival and the messy life I may have, and the hostilities I have to deal with, and the tensions and anxieties. It's like saying at the end of the day, here, let me go into a purer place. Take my soul to a purer place. Now we're told, kista de chayusa, something remains inside the body. But that means consciously there's still the minimum function. The heart continues to beat. Everything slows down. But a certain part of the consciousness of our soul, in a sense, travels to another place. Not physically, obviously, conceptually. It travels to a place where it gets rejuvenated. Goes back to the engine room. But the more you prepare properly for it, the more you enter that state of sleep. With that type of attitude where you're entrusting that soul, the more likely the soul will download from that source new information, new hope, new dreams, and that will enter into your consciousness in the form of dreams that will invigorate and empower you. That may be the reason why we don't remember our dreams unless you write it down or you tell it to someone. It usually disappears very quickly. Positive or negative ones. Because it's going to another place. It's not part of conscious life, so it doesn't really become part of consciousness unless you do something that, like literally, you write it down or you tell someone, so that grounds it. But it's really meant to be a state where we're taken, so to speak. Your soul is refreshed in the source, and then the result of it is your refreshed state, not necessarily to remember exactly what happened. Now, what about the actual dreams themselves? What you dream about, content. So as I mentioned before, every dream is no dream without nonsense. Every dream has some type of truth to it from a higher place. We can't always recognize which is which. That's the challenge. Should we always go for dream interpretation? My answer would be absolutely not. If you see a dream repeats itself a number of times, that may be a message. And a person who's a really expert, like they say about Kabbalah, is those that know don't say, and those that say don't know. If someone's charging you too much money and with a crystal ball to interpret your dreams, it's probably not the right person to go to. You have to find a humble, spiritual person that you can trust, who's looking for the truth. And maybe they could share with you a message that you may have seen there. But they will only share it, remember, the real ones will only share it if it's part of your responsible behavior all day long, on the conscious level. For someone to do everything destructive to their lives, and then, I just want my dream interpreted, that's juvenile. Many people do that because they turn to psychics or others because they're looking for some panacea, some quick fix, especially coming from the mysterious worlds. But the bottom line is it's all how you earn your way. You have to earn your way to enter that place. So someone who's competent may not say it in those words, but they'll make sure that you will deal with it, whatever that dream is telling you, in a responsible way. And if not, they may not share with you. Not every dream will be interpreted. So the answer is yes, in the dreams lays power and lays strength to help you get to a better place. But it also depends on your work. What you did by day. What are you going to do the next day? Not just about what the dream tells you. Are you going to live up to what the dream was interpreted? In case of Joseph, Pharaoh lived up to it. They began to gather the grain, and they saved the grain, and that turned them into a superpower. Had he just interpreted the dream and everybody would have gone back to regular life, then it's a waste of time. What was the point? And the same thing with every real dream. It's part of strengthening the reality and the consciousness of our actual given lives. So you see here in a story with Jacob, Vayachlam, lies down and dreams. We have lessons in that as well. And let's look at his dream a little more. What did he dream? About a ladder that stands on the ground, and its head reaches up into the heavens. This essentially is sometimes compared to prayer. That the ladder had 4 rungs, the 4 stages of prayer. And prayer, as we know, is a journey. It's a traveling from the mundane earth to bring our hearts and souls to a greater place. So that's what a dream is meant to do. It's meant to elevate you to a greater place. Now, I don't know if any of us dream about ladders, but the idea is that when you come into a proper dream properly, it's about bridging 2 worlds. As I said, the conscious world and the superconscious. So in a way you can say the legs of the ladder are in the conscious, but they go up in Shamayma, they reach into the heavens, not just Shamayim, but Shamayma, into the deeper superconscious. And there are angels, there are forces that travel up and down that cling. So think of it like a channel between 2 worlds, heaven and earth. And it's the dream that bridges the 2. So when we are awake and we're not in a dreamlike state, we have to open ourselves up to the spiritual, to the heavenly matters, and recognize that we should be looking for something more than just the here and now, more than just the instant gratification of the present. And then when we wake, and we go into that state, and we come back when we awake, we draw back down that into ways of transforming your life. Because one of the great challenges of change in our lives is the fact that there's a status quo, the inertia of the status quo. The more things change, the more they stay the same. You become resigned. You become fatalistic. You lose hope. So the dream and the sleep in the dream is like the day ends, and now a new day begins. And the new day you begin, Chadosh Levkarim, a new fresh day, that you say, Moda'ani, thank you for returning my soul. Which soul? The one you entrusted the night before to the divine waters, and it was rejuvenated. Now you're drawing it back down. And then you draw down, as I discussed in last week's class, Tahirihi, Ata Barasa, Ata Yitzat, Ata Nefachtavi, Ata Meshamra Bekirbi. It's a pure soul. It's been refreshed. It's pure. Then it comes into the dimension of creation. It relates to our existence. And formation. It's shaped and formed. And finally, it's imbued completely within us. And you protect it within us. Exactly the words that Hashem says, God says to Jacob in the dream. I will protect you in all your journeys. And then I will return you to this. So when you look at it, you have here all these levels. Be'er Sheva is the fountain of 7, is that pure place where all souls originate. And then it goes down to a journey, goes downward, just like the angels that go down. It goes into till it goes Ata Barasa, Ata Nefachta, Ata Yitzat, Ata Nefachtavi, Ata Meshamra Bekirbi. That even when it's below, it will be protected. So there's a time to dream, my friends, and there's a time to be awake. And you see afterwards, Jacob wakes up from his sleep and realizes, I did not know where I was. It's interesting. Is this a positive or a negative? On one hand, it's a negative because Jacob says, I didn't know. It was a holy place. I never would have lied down here. But had he not, he'd never had this dream. So you have to say there's a certain element of not knowing that, again, a superconscious state, that not knowing was happened to be a positive in this case. You can say both elements to it. Then what happens next is he calls it the gate of heaven. A gate of heaven. That's where the dream took place. He wakes up in the morning, Vayashkim Yaakov Vaboker, like I just said, says Moda'ani, I'm sure, takes a stone and makes a covenant there, a mark, Matseva. Chassidus discusses this at length, which I'm not going to go into right now, but it's all connected to our discussion. And he names the place Beis Kale, the house of God, because that's where God appeared to him. Then to continue the story of how he continues on his journey, and ultimately, with all the difficulties, does build his home and comes back and prevails. All began the dream that gave him that strength, the strength from a higher place to be tied above, which would prevent him from falling below and falling into despair and just in general being too weak. So we all have this power. This is the bottom line in life. You have to remember that you and your conclusions about what is possible in your life are too subjective. You have to recognize there is an element that is from a different domain. And you need to dream about it, and read about it, and aspire to it. And even if right now you can't reach it, that doesn't mean it's not possible. That type of attitude is the attitude of winners. And you see people who take that attitude, do not take no for an answer, do not listen to doctors and detractors and naysayers and all those that try to and dissuade us from anything we're excited about. That's the winners. Those are the people who actually achieve it. Those crazy enough to believe that they can change the world are the ones that do it. The dreamers. So, I want to say to all of you, dream on. Dreams are the most powerful force in our lives, in the sense where they allow us to imagine and allow us to aspire and allow us to visualize something greater than what our situation is right now. So, there's a statement from the Alter Rebbe that says about Hasidic thought in general, you could say it about Judaism, about Torah. It teaches you how small you are and how great you can become. There are many people who know how small they are, and they're self-deprecating, and they're self-abnegating, and they're low self-esteem, and I'm worthless, I can't do this, I can't do that. But they don't know how great they can become. Then there are people the other way around. They have illusions of grandeur. They know how great they become, but they don't know where they are. So to teach you how small you are and how great you can become is the key to everything. The dreams open up the horizons, the doors of a bigger reality, how great you can become. That's only possible if you read about it, if you study about it, you discover the enormous reservoirs and resources that are within our souls. At the same time, we need to know where we are. Here's where I am. You can't just say, because I dream it, that's why I'm there. And now knowing where you are, now you can start linking the two. Here's where I am. That's an honest assessment and appraisal of my situation. Here's where I want to be, what I dream to be. That is the key to all elements of growth. So you have both an awareness of where you are and how great you can become. And both are critical. You have only one of the two, you will not have a true growthful experience. And in a way, that's the secret of life in general. The secret of life is that type of aspect of knowing how small you are and how great you can become. It's just a tremendous way of looking at things and understanding how great you can become. You are not an arbiter. You're not a final say of how great you can become, because we're given gifts that we may never be aware of the potential and so on. You're created in the divine image. That alone tells you how much greatness you carry within you. But we become our own worst enemies when we start saying, nah, I don't know, I don't think it's true. And we become that resigned individual. So Tachas Hashemesh, under the sun, there is nothing new. Everything, the more things change, the more they stay the same. But above the sun, when you go into that super conscious place, then everything is new. And you're constantly figuring, you're constantly experiencing renewal with that new hope, with a new attitude, a new project, a new plan, a new approach, etc., etc. So all this we learn from this story with Jacob, and of course many other episodes in the Torah, the narrative of how great a human being can become, and dreaming toward it, and traveling toward it, which explains also why Mashiach is such a fundamental principle in Jewish life. You could say, what difference does it make? What will happen will happen. Right now we're here. Because knowing that the end is in sight, knowing that the end will be good, informs the journey throughout. It's like going on a journey and you have no idea where you're going. You have no idea that, not only where you're going, you have no idea that you could reach there. In Vietnam, that was one of the big crimes, that big lessons we learned. You fight a war, you don't know you could win, you don't even know what victory means. Obviously, you can't win such a battle. Whereas when you go on a journey and you say, even from step one, I know where I'm going and I know I can reach there, that infuses us with a strength, with a confidence that you can overcome any challenge. And that's why it's critical to also have that, how great we can become, not just where you are. And understand that that is a key component in the whole journey. Vayachlim, the dream that allows us to dream and imagine realities that are far beyond the vistas that we are experiencing presently. That's part of who we are, and as we do that, we learn to access that dimension and then integrate it back in our lives. So yes, a dream can change your life. The general concept, the fact that you could dream something that's beyond the here and now, that alone is transformative. So in the general picture of the whole story, it comes down to this. We are in control of our destinies. We really are. They said how small you are and how great you can become. The same Alter Rebbe also said once, they said about him, that he taught the greatness of every detail and the smallness of every big thing. It's a similar idea, the idea of knowing where you are and knowing how great what you can achieve. Look at the potential that many of us have that we discover by accident or in some other way. And suddenly you realize, what else do I have inside of me that I'm capable of? So at the end of the day, it's about understanding of your capacities that are far beyond ones you can ever imagine. So, but we need imagination to imagine that. Imagination to imagine. Let's conclude with some practical suggestions. As I said, practical suggestion number one is that before we go to bed, make sure don't just go to bed with your television on or with a newspaper on your nose. Go to bed with something spiritual. Open yourself up to the state of a deeper consciousness, a higher consciousness, with humility, and say, yes, I entrust you with my soul. Enter sleep in that way. Guaranteed sleep will give you back something far more than your investment. And then waking up in the morning, moda'ani, acknowledging all that, taking it into our lives. We're so distracted by the rush hour and by the material pursuits and our concerns, financial concerns, other concerns, that we don't have these pure moments. We don't have enough of them. So that's one suggestion. Another suggestion is the following, that throughout the day, do things that make you proud. Choose a few things. In other words, if it was a difficult day, make sure you go help somebody, give them a little charity. Do kind things even on difficult days, because that will also inform your sleep and your dreams. So that's suggestion number 2. And number 3, don't stop dreaming, even in the conscious hours. Always know that we have to have our head in the clouds, so to speak. Your feet firmly planted on the ground, but your head should always be looking up, which is what gives us the ability to look up, be curious, be aware, look for something more, look for opportunities that others would not see. You can't imagine what you can uncover when you have this type of attitude. So, my friends, this has been Simon Jacobson. We will resume next Wednesday as we always do, approximately 8:15 to 9:15. I also want to make an exciting announcement, which you may have seen or maybe you haven't seen. But check out meaningfullife.com, a completely new website with a whole more with everything that you love about us, but much more, within a very easy platform, accessible. And I'm very, very gratified, because this is going to be a way for us to deliver a lot more and hopefully hear back from you, your needs and so on. It's completely customizable. So I encourage you to become a free member, which is essentially just giving us some information about yourself, and asking for content that will be customized. You can have your own page and that every day will deliver to you content that you want. Not necessarily everything, whatever you want, whether it's something you're interested in dealing with love and relationships, or something dealing with, unfortunately, pain, or if you're a parent, or education-based, or the current events, and so on. You can create your own customization, and our goal is to create a symbiotic, a seamless flow that we can provide content to you in ways that are completely as you see and you need, that can help you grow. We're calling it your one-stop spiritual wellness center, where you can actually develop and grow and exercise your own spiritual and psychological and emotional hygiene. And look forward to more to come. Check out the website, meaningfullife.com, and browse around. I'd love to get your feedback and thoughts. And I want to thank my team for building this. It took some time, but it was well worth it, and I hope you feel the same. So again, this has been Simon Jacobson, with Wednesday night, and we continue our journey. Anything we can do to help you, please let us know, and stay in touch. Until next Wednesday, everyone have a very blessed and dreamful, aspiring week that allows you to open up new doors and new opportunities in places where you may not yet have even imagined that being possible. Everyone be well. Bye-bye.